Hi everyone, welcome to my story time. For the purposes of my storytelling, I will be grouping my traumas into four categories. So we have professional loss, car accidents, sexual assault, and witness to a crime. Okay, so my approach to this story time is on a damage assessment point of view. So I have specific points that I want to cover for each of the traumas together. So first off is to list and describe the traumas. So I'll start with professional loss. I completed my first degree, and then a few years later I went back to do the social work as a second degree program, which is accelerated over 4 semesters. In my second semester of social work, I was accused of academic dishonesty. More specifically, I was accused of faking an email to get an assignment graded, so I wouldn't fail a course. And to make it even funnier, it was the ethics course. Also, in the professional part, since I already had established mental health issues before many of the traumas, I did have some accommodations through the London Center, the Disability Center at MUN. And in that first semester, they were respected and I was accommodated, but in the second semester, it wasn't. So the professional loss is mostly about School of Social Work and how I was accused of dishonesty when it's not accurate, and that I was refused the accommodations that I was deemed to have enough reason to have. Okay. The second category that I'm looking at is car accidents. So the first one happened on Stavanger Drive, and we were coming out of PetSmart, going towards Walmart on Stavanger, and the car driving in the opposite lane, or the opposite direction of a turning lane, smashed into us, crashed in head on. So that was the first car accident. The second one was within a year later, so it wasn't even a full year. The second one, my friend was driving us to my place on Boyle Street, because that's where I lived at the time, and she was going down the hill and then drifted right to the end and ran into the back of an SUV. Yeah, so that was that one. That one was completely the driver's fault, whereas the first one was not the driver's fault. Okay, and for sexual assault, there is the date rape that I had. But what was even worse was going to the police and going through their interview with the sexual crime division. It was horrendous. If you've watched 13 Reasons Why, near the end of it, when the main character, Hannah, is talking to the school counselor, it was the same type of questions, and they were very invasive and as if they didn't believe me. So I decided if it ever happened again, I wasn't going to the police. So when the second time happened, it was actually during my birthday celebration of 2017. Yes, 2017. And what had happened was the person that I was with didn't stop when I said stop, and I had to pretty much yell it 3 times at him before he stopped. So it was a violation of my consent. And then in the past couple months, I had somebody attempt to assault me, but I was able to fight it off. So that's good. And the last one is crime. So a couple of years ago, in the parking lot of the Village Mall, and I was working at the Village at the time, I came across this woman who was yelling help, help, and chasing after a guy saying that he stole her money. And so I promptly called 911 and pursued them, and letting the police know what was happening with the two people. And at one point, the the person who was accused of stealing her money got into a cab, but the cab driver refused to drive away. And so she ran up to the cab and started like banging on the window and stuff. And well, he got out of the cab and assaulted her right in front of me. Yeah. So those are the 4 topics that I will be discussing, and they're just like the highlights or lowlights. Highlights, lowlights. Okay, so what did I lose? Well, on the professional side of things, I failed 2 courses, and in the school of social work you can only fail 1. Fail a second, then you're kicked out of the program. So I failed 2 courses, one because I was accused of dishonesty, and the second one because I was not having my reasonable accommodation of extra time that I was approved for, so I wasn't able to finish the assignments in a timely manner. Okay, I was in a meeting with the department head regarding the academic dishonesty. The department head said that somebody with my type of disability, mental illness, should not be in the social work program or the social work profession. So because of the trauma of, or because of the loss in the School of Social Work, I have lost out on many employment opportunities, the ability to earn more money, and I also lost the respect of my peers and of the faculty. On to car accidents. So here I have a loss of physical safety. I'm often very nervous in vehicles. I hide it pretty well, but I still have bad car days, as I call it, and I just find it difficult to trust being in a car, not necessarily the driver, but of all the other cars around. Okay, so also under car accidents, I've had damage to joints and muscles. We talked about my car anxiety. Okay. Yes, and the car accidents made it necessary that I get a lawyer and pursue insurance just to get by, because I was devastated emotionally and physically after these car accidents. Okay, well, sexual assaults, there's a loss of trust and loss of the ability to be vulnerable. And it's so much easier to be re-traumatized. It really is. What I wouldn't deem to be sexual assault before has changed dramatically. And as for the crime I witnessed, um, the other bystanders did not get involved, so I was alone and I was putting myself at risk. So there's that fear of not being supported, of not being safe, but also fear that the person involved would not come to justice and that the other person involved would be harmed. So my loss of trust in society is what I think is the best way to put it. Okay, negative impacts. The professional, I am now unable to complete the social work program, at least at MUN, and I have very, very little hope of doing it with another university. And what makes this even worse is that I'm unable to seek justice for being denied my reasonable accommodations and being denied the truth that I did not do any academic dishonesty, that I did not try to cheat or falsify anything. Shortly after this happened, I did approach an organization to find out how to file a human rights claim because they violated my human rights. And I only had a year to pursue it. At the end of 1 year, I still did not have the mental and emotional capacity to pursue it. And that haunts me to this day. For the car accidents, the negative impact is that I have unreasonable fear of drivers, of driving, of being a passenger. I've limited myself to only one cab company. I don't trust any others. Okay, and I just have issues with transportation in general now. Even though, I have no traumatic experiences from being on the bus, it's still a vehicle that other vehicles can hit. It's just, it's a huge barrier. For the sexual assault, there's issues with intimacy and trust. So I'm afraid to get close to somebody physically. I'm afraid to get close to somebody emotionally. And I don't trust the people I know to stop when I say stop. Like that second incident that I mentioned, I had been seeing that guy casually for a year. And that's when he broke my trust. And also the negative impact of not being supported by law enforcement. Okay, negative impacts for the crime that I witnessed. I see everyday situations as dangerous. I don't know when things are going to turn. And I'm always looking for danger. So I'm looking for people going after other people or some sort of mishap, and I'm afraid that I'm going to get involved. Now, in the past I have chosen to get involved, but now it's too much. Okay. Okay, factors preventing grieving. So in the professional capacity, I feel like nobody sees this as a trauma. And this is probably the greatest trauma that I have not been able to work through yet. I can't grieve it because others see it as just a bad go at school. You got a bad mark, failed out. That it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. Because I didn't just fall because I didn't fail because I didn't know the information. Because I didn't know. I failed because somebody thought I lied. And I failed because somebody didn't think I was worth my accommodations. This is definitely the one that I need to spend more time working through. Because I feel like such a failure. For the car accidents, I've had some pretty good experiences in sharing and processing and being supported by both professionals and by peers. The first car accident was discussed intensely when I was at Homewood. The second one, it was just the same coping as the first. For the sexual assaults, not having someone to confide in after the second incident has really slowed down my grieving and my processing of this. The lack of professional support has been unbearable. I need somebody to help guide me through this. And lastly, the crime I witnessed what's preventing me from grieving is that I feel so much guilt that I did this to myself, that I chose, that I chose to insert myself where I wasn't needed, but I felt I was needed. I feel like it's my fault that I have that trauma, that I could have just put my head down and turned away like everybody else. So that is my damage assessment of the traumas that I have gone through. And thank you for listening.